Good morning, everybody. It's Monday morning again, and we're starting off another week filled with unknown opportunities and challenges. And we're going to meet this with courage and boldness as we move forward one day closer to glory, right? I want to do something a little bit different this morning, something I've never tried to do before. I want to give you, just for a few moments, a movie review. Over the weekend, somebody gave us a copy of the movie I Still Believe. It's the story of Jeremy Camp. He's a Christian singer. I don't really listen to a lot of that kind of music, so I wasn't familiar with the story, but I wanted to share with you a little bit about my thoughts on this Christian movie. I kind of made a veiled reference to it yesterday in the message, and I want to be fair, and these are my thoughts on the movie. First of all, thank you to the one who allowed us to watch that. Patty and I sat down Saturday evening and watched it together. And I want to start off by simply telling you right up front that I thought it was a good movie, and it's a movie that Christians should watch. I think it's valuable, and I think it's good for two reasons. The first reason that I really liked the movie is that it was a tremendous love story. The story of Jeremy Camp and the love that he had for his wife, and the perseverance and the faithfulness in the midst of tragedy and difficulties and all of that. It was a very compelling story. Patty and I are about to celebrate our anniversary, and so we had fun while the movie was playing itself out, talking about how we met and what we were like when we first got together, and all that kind of stuff that's portrayed in the movie. And so in that way, it's a good story. It's a good love story. And some of you guys, if you're watching this, you might think, oh, love story. Well, the love story genre is a biblical genre, right? I mean, there's a whole book in the Bible about the love between a man and a woman and a man. Song of Solomon, right? And I would agree with the Puritans in that I think that book is really about God's love for his church. But as we talked about yesterday with Mother's Day, God uses the best illustrations, the most profound illustrations, to reveal himself. Just like he does with mothers, right? Motherhood. He uses motherhood as an example of his unfailing love for us. See, this is what I'm like. And he uses the best illustrations. And so God uses the illustration of a man and a wife and their love for one another as a revelation of himself. He does this in Song of Solomon. He does this in Ephesians chapter 5, and the husband and the wife and all of that. So the love story is a great genre, and this is a great love story. It's a gut punch of a love story in the sense of faithfulness and perseverance and trial. So I really like that about the movie, and Patty and I really enjoyed watching that together. The second thing I really liked about the movie, I don't know how to state any other way but negatively, the thing that I detest the most about quote-unquote Christian movies, one of the two things I detest the most, number one, is that so many of them portray the Christian life as if you believe in Jesus and trust in him, everything will work out great for you in this life. And that just drives me up the wall, because you just can't find that in the New Testament. Jesus is greater than that. The gospel is greater than just a means for a happy and successful life and having your prayers answered the way that you want. And so this movie doesn't go the way that the typical Christian movie goes. It doesn't take you to, hey, pray and be faithful and God will answer your prayers and you'll have everything you want. In fact, the opposite happens in this. And part of the tension and the drama of the movie is, what do you do when God doesn't answer your prayers the way that you want? And so in that, I found it refreshing that they actually dealt realistically with life. And so I really appreciated that. So those are the two things I really liked about I Still Believe. Number one is that it's a great love story. Number two, it's not the health and prosperity gospel packaged for the movie industry. What I didn't like about the movie, and this is what I made reference to yesterday in my message, is that it's not specifically Christian. And what I mean by that, it's not anti-Christian. And I also understand Jesus said, "Whoever's not against me is for me." And so it's not an anti-Christian movie. It's not a movie from an anti-Christian perspective, directly anyway. But at the same time, in my personal opinion, I don't understand why you would call something Christian and leave Christ out of it. The way the movie presented itself, it could be believed and accepted by people who aren't Christians. Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and even Muslims, I would suppose, could look at that movie. Yeah, that was great, and they wouldn't find anything in it that would be objectionable. It's a Christian movie without Christ. There's no presentation of the gospel. There's no declaration of why we have hope in the middle of our tragedies, why we still believe. In fact, the title of the movie is I Still Believe, and yet I'm not really sure even to this point what he believes or why he believes it. And so coming at it from a non-Christian perspective, if I'd never heard the gospel, didn't know anything about Christianity, and I sit down and watch that movie, I still wouldn't know anything right now, because Jesus was never presented. And it almost seemed at one point that there was this inevitable collision course of the events and the story and the gospel of Jesus Christ. It seemed inevitable. That's where they were taking it. And so when they didn't go there, I'm thinking they intentionally sidestepped that question, because at one point Jeremy Camp asks his father, what do you do when you face all these tragedies and God doesn't answer your prayers the way that you want? And I'm thinking, man, that's just the prime place to share the good news of Jesus. How the disciples believed Jesus and they loved Jesus and they put all their hope in Jesus, and they surrendered their past for Jesus, and their entire futures were wrapped up in Jesus. And then he dies on a cross at the hands of wicked and evil men. It looked like, from that perspective, Friday night and Saturday, that the bad guys had won. All of their hopes and all of their plans and all of their dreams were completely shattered, and they were left with nothing. And yet, that was the very means by which God saved the world. And so you could use the illustration of Joseph and his brothers. What you meant for evil, God meant for good, to bring about the salvation of many people. I mean, there were so many ways to present the good news of Jesus in the midst of this real and devastating tragedy that they were encountering. And they didn't do it. They just went with the sappy, trust God, everything will work out okay eventually. So I was really disappointed by that, in the sense that so much of what is called Christian movies and Christian music, and even sometimes what are called Christian sermons, leave Christ out of the message. There's no Jesus in it. And if there's no Christ, there's no Christianity. If there's no gospel, there's no Christianity. The Apostle Paul said, I've determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Now, obviously, that's not the only thing that Paul talked about. As we saw in Romans chapter 12 yesterday, he's got a lot of things to say in regards to how we live our lives. What he means when he says that is that without the cross of Jesus Christ, we have nothing that is unique, that is necessary. We have nothing to offer the world. In fact, Paul says, if Christ be not raised, we are of all men most to be pitied. And so if our hope is in this life only, what are we doing? I mean, what does it all mean? And so in that sense, I know I've carried on longer about what I didn't like about the movie than what I did. But therein lies the weakness of movies anyway. The genre, the movie industry is not capable of conveying the message. It's the foolishness of the word preached that God has used to save people. So this movie is valuable in that it'll bring up questions and cause people to ask and search and all that. And so again, I recommend the movie. I think it was a good movie. Great love story. It wasn't the sappy, everything will work out wonderful, they live happily ever after type fairy tale stuff. I mean, it was real in the struggles and the trials of life. But calling it a Christian movie, at least in my opinion, is a bit of a stretch. We need to preach Jesus, and we need to hold fast to Jesus. The reason we have hope, the reason we have a foundation to stand on when this world falls apart, when our worlds fall apart, is because our hope isn't in this world. Our hope is in God, who's working all things together for good. And that's all things, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in this life, it's going to work out one day. And so we can trust Him and believe in Him even when our plans are completely shattered. So with that, whatever you're going through today, I hope that you are encouraged. I hope that you will hold fast to Jesus. And I hope that you'll talk to people about Jesus. This is what people need to hear. They don't really need movies as much as they need a Messiah. They need Jesus. And we have that gospel message. And let's be careful and consistent and diligent to share it with every opportunity. Be blessed. We'll see you soon.